Annulments. You ever think about getting a Catholic annulment? Well, I have. I've received 2 of them. I've been married and divorced in the church twice. I know. You're wondering, what the hell are you thinking? So was I. But you know what? I went through the process. It was recommended. I've been pretty faithful all my life to the Catholic Church, the 10 Commandments and so on. And I took my marriages very seriously. And that's the reason why I got married in the church. And my first marriage is I was 22. And, you know, the process was a lot different because I was in a different frame of mind. And I really thought, you know, you marry for life and you work with the 10 Commandments and so on. And you're really not prepared. You know, the Catholic Church, they have what they call a intake process or a retreat, pre-marriage and so on. And you know what? I was thinking about it over the last 71 years about how important that pre-marriage retreat is. You would think it's for the requirements of the Catholic Church. It is, however, it's really for you. It's almost like doing your due diligence. So your mindset is very important to go into a marriage. I don't think people realize how important it is. And to be honest, now that I went through the process a couple times and I'm more mature at 70 plus years old, I didn't take it as serious. I just thought I fucking knew it all. I knew this person. I knew what I was getting into. They were Catholic. The first marriage was definitely we were going to have children because that was the plan. But I didn't really take it as serious as what the annulment process is. So this video is going to be kind of presented on what to expect in an annulment. I would say, 98% of people that are married in Catholic Church don't get an annulment. And you know, you could get an annulment after you're married, prior to your marriage. If you marry, you know, out of the church and marry into the church the second time around, there's a lot of reasons why to do it. But here's the critical point. The critical point is that once you receive your annulment, it's granted, basically. It's really a good, what should I say? It's refreshing to understand, looking back, at how it didn't make sense to get married to that person. And it's almost like an achievement or an award to realize that you didn't deserve each other. You shouldn't have got married, bro. But who would have known, okay? So basically, it's a sacrament. You know, marriage is a sacrament in the Catholic Church. But, you know, families have match-up relationships in different countries. Christians get married in different ways. The Catholic Church really takes it fucking serious, man. Because it is really thorough. It's very thorough. And it's almost like I'm in the merger and acquisition business, and so you have to go through valuations, you have to go through due diligence, what we call transparency, and then it's either a letter of interest or it's a deal or no deal. I should have looked at this very, very thoroughly because I was in my mid-50s when I got married the second time around. But you know what? I did pick the wrong horse. And I'm sitting there talking to you people about making sure you pick the right horse. Well, I picked the wrong horse. But now I'm going to give you kind of like the introduction of how to petition for an annulment. And in my situation is I was already divorced in the state of Florida, okay? And I'm going to go to the second marriage, not the first marriage. The first marriage was dissolved in 1988. I received, a year later in 1989, I received an annulment. And what's cool about it is you both receive an annulment, in both parties, the husband and the wife, okay? There's no discretion about who gets it and who doesn't get it, okay? But what was interesting is I'm only going to give you the part about how to petition and so on, and how my second divorce and annulment came about was I happened to be at church going to Mass, and I was in the office for some reason, and the priest came up to me, and he says, "Hey, Rock, where's your beautiful wife?" I says, "Father, where you been? I've been divorced for a year now." He goes, "You're kidding me." "Yeah, come see me." So I went to his office, and he proposed an annulment. I says, "Father, listen, I'm never going to get married again. There's no reason for me to get an annulment." He goes, "That's not the point, Rock. The point is you go back in the history, you go through the process, and believe me, you'll be much happier about basically what happened. And do you really want to know what happened? Of course, you want to know the truth. But there's the civil part, which is all bullshit. You know, we talk about that. We talk about the prenups. We talk about the civil law. We talk about the divorce process in the state. It's terrible. It's terrible. And that's why there's so much hatred towards a divorce and alimony and child support. And that whole process is fucking terrible. You're owned by the state, as they say. But in the Catholic Church, you could actually prove that you should have never been married, and there's reasons why on both parties. So it's very therapeutic, and you're going to feel good about it, and there's a process. So what I did is I brought the questionnaire, which, oh, by the way, it's strictly confidential information, okay? And after the priest brought me in, I didn't realize this, but there's what they call an advocate. An advocate that sponsors the church walks you through the process. It is very, very specific. It took me months to even respond. And the advocate kept coming back saying, "Rock, what about this? You got to be more specific." And I was getting pissed off. Because I didn't really want to share. I really didn't want to share all the personal shit that went on both parties, because I didn't want to bash anybody at that point. You know, and these people knew not only me, they knew my ex-wife at the time. So it's really hard, man. And I was the petitioner, so I agreed. And after 50 years, in 1988, 89, 40, 50 years, the process has changed. The Vatican rules have changed. The process has changed. The questionnaire has changed. But I just want to give you a heads up as a layperson, because you could go on YouTube and you could go to the church and so on. You could get brochures and so on. And it's usually coming for the church, okay? I'm going to get more personal on what it takes. And I'm pro annulment process. I am. Even though at the time I was like pissed off. I didn't want to do it. It didn't mean anything to me, to the point where, God, I'm never going to get married again. Why would I do that? What a sucker. I've been through it twice already. But one of my requirements after the first marriage, and I didn't remarry for 22 years, was I wanted a woman that was Catholic. And in fact, I met her in church, of all places, in the Catholic church, not in the chapel, outside of the chapel. But I noticed her, and I introduced myself when I saw her at a gas station. And that's how it all started. So I really don't want to go back. I had enough. I had alimony. There was money involved. There was a lot of lies, and it was just bad. So I really didn't want to reopen that wound. So I decided to do it, and they assigned an advocate, and I had to go through the process. And the priest doesn't bring you through it. They usually have a layperson, either attorney, an engineer. Like in my case, it was an engineer and his wife. And his wife was a writer. So, and we had multiple meetings, a lot of going down deep in the past and, your feelings and your emotions. And, oh, my God, I really didn't want to share a lot of this stuff, you know? So I probably rewrote it. I started in, I don't know, July of 2023. And let me see here. I think they submitted it to the tribunal in May of 2024. So it took 6 months or more to get it basically presentable, because my advocates were rejecting it. So, no, Rock, this isn't good enough. Rock, this isn't, you got to get more intense. And I really didn't want to write it out. I was crying. I was rewriting it. I went on AI to try to make it more smooth, more diplomatic per se. But I had to tell the truth, man. And that's what they want. It's the truth. So I'm going to give you, let me see here. There's 14 pages. 14 pages. And basically it's a questionnaire for the petitioner, because I was the petitioner. And it's basically you tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and so on and so on. And you got to answer. And I'll just give you a couple questions. There's sections. And in this case, it's regarding the courtship. So they actually go back to when you started dating. And I'll give you the first question. Describe yourself in your life at the time you met your former spouse. Okay, so I went through that. This is for you if you're interested. And to me, I'm telling you, it's worth it, okay? Another question is, describe your former spouse and her life at the time you met. Then I wrote 4 or 5 questions or sentences. Before you met your spouse, how much dating had you been done? Okay? I'll jump down to a 5th question. Describe how you and your former spouse began to date. What attracted you to each other? And I wrote answers, all right? Number 9 or 7. Describe any problems dating the courtship and how they were resolved. Did any person caution or advise you against a marriage? Please explain who and what they said. I had an answer for that too. Were there any discussions or threats to break off the relationship? If this was a sexually active courtship, please explain if it had positive or negative influence on the decision to marry. Whoa, I was cautious with that one. Did you choose to cohabitate before marriage? This is the Catholic Church asking you this. Well, in some cases, it's not applicable to me. Was there a premarital pregnancy? Okay, all right. During your courtship, how did you practice your faith? What value did religion have in your life? Was your upbringing nurtured with church attendance? That was one of the reasons why I married her, by the way. Another section. Those were 18 questions. Regarding the marriage decision, what were your expectations for marriage? Were there any unusual conflicts surrounding the wedding day or the honeymoon? You hear a lot about that, about people going through that. Did either of you consider divorce as a future option? Was absolute fidelity of value to you and your former spouse at the time of the marriage? Okay, a bunch of questions. I'm jumped down to 27. Did both you marry the person you intended to marry? I had an answer for that too. Did each of you take a role in preparing for marriage? Were you and your former spouse equally enthusiastic about the wedding? Was there any hesitation on the part of you or your former spouse? Now we're at page 8. Question 30, new section. Regarding the common life, what were your main complaints about your former spouse as a spouse? What were your former spouse's complaints about you as a spouse? Intense shit, man. You need therapy after this. Did any problems develop in marital intimacy? Was there a lack of sufficient exchanges of affection? If so, please explain in detail. Were there any separations for any reasons during the marriage? Were there any sexual problems or infidelity? Were you and your former spouse emotionally stable? Okay. Was there any abuse of alcohol or use of illegal drugs? Exactly. When during the marriage were statements first made about a possible divorce? I was married in 2010. We were talking about it since 2012. I knew I was in trouble, but I was too faithful. I was going to make it work. Till death. What was the cause of the breakup of the marriage? Oh my God. I could have wrote a book about that. I'll just read it a little bit of question 42. What was the cause of the breakup of the marriage? Was it a slow process? And I answered, the marriage end was slow steady decline that started in 2012. After recognizing that the issues could not be resolved despite years of effort. New section. Regarding your backgrounds. That was interesting. That was very interesting, because then we could talk about what was happening. Describe your schooling. Number and types of schools attended and your social life and friendships. That was a big one, because I really overestimated her intelligence, her schooling. Actually, she lied about her schooling, her education, her licenses, and so on. It was terrible. And don't forget, I learned a lot of this not only during the marriage. I found out during discovery in the divorce process with the state and attorneys. It was terrible. The lies and oh my God. Describe any special problems or circumstances in your former wife's family of origin, such as divorce, absence, lack or excessive discipline, lack of affection, religious extremes or indifference, death, illness, alcohol, drugs, sexual problems, abuse, physical hurt. Yeah, and you got to answer it, man. They will not take a blank, because they'll send it right back to you and say, you got to answer it, man. And I was very hesitant, but you know what? It was worth doing, okay? Describe your spouse's schooling and so on, social life and friendship. So they get into hers too, in this case. Another section, after divorce and regarding future plans. Jump down to question 49. Has either party remarried or is intending to do so? If you remarried or plan to remarry, okay, getting to an end here. Did either the respondent intentionally hide information about yourself, which would have resulted in the other calling off the wedding? Yeah. If I would have known, I wasn't strong enough. I should have known during the retreat, but it was a fucking lie. And there was an intake by the priest that's notified, but you're interviewed separately. And one of the issues that is discussed, in my case, was there a prenup? And yes, there was a prenup. And she agreed in her intake questionnaire, but she lied under oath that there wasn't. And I could not get that information because the Catholic Church does not allow. It's strictly confidential information, and in a file, you can't get it. So going back to a prenup, make sure it's well known, not only with the Catholic Church, because we kept it to ourselves. Let everyone know that you have a prenup. And as I mentioned before in my YouTubes and my videos, if they don't sign a prenup, either one of you, walk away, which I did in the year 2001, 2002 with a woman I was engaged to. She wouldn't sign the prenup, so I walked away. Okay? It's hard. It's hard to do, but man, I wouldn't have been in so much fucking trouble. Did anyone else know? Here's the question, 53. Did anyone else know of the hidden information about one of the parties and not tell the other party of it? Yes. Was it intentional? Fucking right, it was intentional. What was your reaction or that of the respondent when the deception was discovered? Get out, lump sum, get out. Because it was going to go on forever if I didn't propose a settlement. I'd still be negotiating. That's how crazy it was. And don't forget, I was paying temporary relief during that time, all the while. It was terrible. If you were the deceived, do you consider yourself a naive person? Could you have known of the deception before the wedding? I'm going to answer some of that, as I did. I do not consider myself a naive person, as I have took every step I could to protect myself and my family, both in the short and the long term, including obtaining a prenup. In hindsight, ensuring broader awareness and documentation of the prenuptial agreement could have helped prevent and uncover the deceptions. Yeah. And these were legally binding, but I'd have to go to court. I had trial, and it wasn't worth going to trial because a judge could make a decision. And during that 12 months of negotiation and mediation and so on of my divorce, there were 3 different judges during that time. all of them women. That was the risk I was taking. They would not consider me the victim. Believe me, I was the breadwinner. How long did the marriage last from the discovery of the deception until the divorce? Okay, the last two items. In a brief statement, please explain why you believe the consent given by you and your former spouse at the wedding ceremony was defective, or the ability to give and live that consent did not exist in the marital relationship. Another question that you had to answer is, please give any other information that you believe would be helpful to the tribunal in the study of your marital history. It was dated in October of 2024. I received, along with my ex-spouse, received the actual annulment in July of 2025. The divorce process started in May of 2022. So it took a while, man. Actually longer than I thought. But I had no activity. I wasn't thinking about getting married. I wasn't doing any other shit. I just wanted to get it done and get it out. And I'm glad I did it. So I want to thank Father for that. I did send him thank you notes. And by the way, you also have to appoint 3 witnesses that witnesses while you were dating. So I had 3 witnesses and they all participated. I sent them a thank you note. I sent the thank you note to the husband and wife advocate at my church and the priest saying thank you. I fought it. I didn't feel it was worth it. But now that I know it, and now what did I do with this? I sent it to my estate attorney, my estate planner, my attorney to say, listen, I have the annulment. My kids know upon my death that, I could receive all the sacraments. I continue on. If I remarry, I could remarry in the church. And by the way, I've changed my requirements, criteria. And a third wife definitely has to be divorced at least once and have an annulment so she can get married in the Catholic Church. Okay? Now, the surprise that I have is my ex-wife contested the divorce and the prenup, but she didn't contest the annulment at all. And I'll have the answer for you at another video, what eventually happened, what the decision was based on, because they have rules too, which are canon law rules. And they were described to me why we were granted the annulment. And I'm sure she's not proud of that. Was I naive to the Catholic Church? In a way I was, because I should have really dug deeper into it. So this is worthwhile in your mind. It's psychologically something that's really good. And I just can't believe that this woman I married, she was definitely not who I thought I was marrying. Forget about expectations. I just thought she was a much better, honest, trustworthy person that really loved me. What we discovered was no. Proved it to me in 12 years of marriage, but then the Catholic Church is saying, yeah, Rock. And there's 3 responses. I'll do that on a different video. Right now, I'm hoping that people seriously look at this, especially if you're young. And it's worth going to me, it was worth going to the Catholic Church and feeling as if, you know what, I've done all the right things. I received the truth by the Catholic Church, which is important to me. If my mother was still alive, she would be happy for me. Now, am I going to share this with my 100-year-old father? No. He knows I got my own problems. And if I can't bring joy to my father, I'm not going to do it. But I'm happy I did what I did. So that's just my message on annulments. I hope it opens up a dialogue, men and women. And it's important. It's important to me that I went through this process for the second time. So I'm a real fucking pro. And it's really therapeutic. So anyway, God bless. It's important to me. I know I talk about divorce all the time, but the Catholic Church had a lot to do with my selection of a woman, a Catholic woman, that I believe was was the right pick from God. Well, I picked the wrong horse, man. And she did too. So it's pretty sad. So anyway, I'll talk to you soon. I hope you learned something from this. You understand it. You're open to it. And it's something that might be healthy for you. God bless. I'll talk to you soon.